Hello, welcome to another show of Easy 8's Online Painting Club. My name's Danny and I'll be with you here for the next 2 hours. I don't know why today, but for some reason my nerves are going through the roof, but it's probably because, once again, we're going to be doing the show without Kyle. Kyle just says that he likes to be along whenever he possibly can to be a part of this experience, but at last minute he had some changes to his plans where he had to dash off and go and do some other bits and pieces with some urgency. So he had planned to be here, but unfortunately he can't be, so it's just me that's going to be here tonight. So if you were hoping to come and see Kyle paint the Blood Angels that he's been really looking forward to paint, then tune out, because he's not going to be here. It's just going to be boring old me. Anyway, it's been a really good week for me. The start of the week was a bit slow. I had a migraine and I was on Facebook just the other day just saying, hey, sorry for no updates, etc. But I'd lost a day basically. Like Sunday or Monday, I just woke up with a horrible headache and then days blurred together, but managed to recover midweek and I got on with some bits and pieces. I've been doing a few things, so I've been painting a Games Workshop Biovore. If you've been on the YouTube channel, on the Facebook page, you'll see my updates where I'm painting this little thing. I'll show you on the workbench in a minute. And I've been making sure that I've been doing other projects, so I'm not just kind of getting myself all involved in just one. I made a little Firefly in 15mm, which is what I'm going to be painting today, but I've also been finally getting around to making the 1/35th Panther. It's just an amazing piece of equipment. It's taken me probably about 15 hours so far to get to this point, and I've still yet to do all the wheels and tracks and racks and things down the side of it. But this was a gift, and it's wonderful. I love it. So thank you very much, Dad, who bought it for me for my birthday. So yeah, I haven't really got much more to say about what I've been doing throughout the week, because I say I had a bit of a slow one. However, I've done a few bits and pieces with the layout of the channel. Again, maybe things that you can see, can't see. I got rid of the little live chat window that pops up in the screen because it was just so small and I couldn't see it, and it just kind of got in the way, and well, we couldn't all interact with it anyway. So if you want to be involved in today and get along and chat, whatever, I should be able to read it over in the chat window where I can see things a little bit more clearly. Hopefully my microphone levels are all coming through loud and clear. I did have a few problems again just before starting up. It's just because when it comes to technology, I'm a bit of a noob, so I apologise if things aren't really that good. So yeah, I'm hoping in the new year, when in the new year I'm not too sure, but hopefully within the first week I'd like to be streaming to Twitch. So if you are a user of Twitch, then I'll be bringing this show and some other ideas in the future to the kingdom of Twitch as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm stoked. There's a lot to learn. I'm very new to it all, but I'm going to be presenting this show as a bit of a video blog. Adrian Dean in the comments there, hey, nice to see you. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully everything's all coming through loud and clear. Nice to see we've got our regular viewers again. We've got a nice amount of viewers coming in at the moment. I'm quite happy to see that. We're building. It's really good. Where was I? So yeah, I've got some ideas where I want the future of this show to go, and I'm always going to do this online painting club because for me this is how it all started. I wanted to be able to provide a medium for people where they could just kind of get together virtually, because the pandemic is still going on. Jeanette Dean, evening. Hello Jeanette, nice to see you. Usual faces again. But also just because there's such a huge community out there, I want it to stretch out beyond my local community. I want it to go to the county, the country, and I want it to go across the whole world. So you know, because there's so much knowledge that people can bring to it, I like the idea of having that kind of local experience going to your gaming club, but bringing in everyone's kind of experience as well. Dave Lester, another usual viewer, evening. Hello Dave, nice to see you as well. So I'm also thinking about doing some other ventures. So I'm probably going to be going into the realm of gaming, not too much, and there'll be relevant games as well. So I'm not going to be doing things like Call of Duty or anything like that, though I'm sure they're fun. Everybody does them already, but I was going to try and do something that's a bit more relevant. So maybe I would like display Games Workshop games that I play. So I play a little bit of Necromunda, I play lots of 40k. I'd also like to do a little bit of bolt action. I've not had any experience in that as well. So I will play games and show you, and you can enjoy the the beating that I'll probably get because I'm not that good at games. But also you can see games that you may enjoy or haven't seen before. I'll also like to play a lot of the 15mm games and things like that, and I'll just present them to you as a bit of fun. Bring a beer, bring some friends or whatever, and watch the games unfold. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing some more sort of educational things. I'm not sure how I'm going to go into that just yet because, again, that sort of thing exists out there already, so I want it to be relevant. But if you have any ideas, if you have something that you want to see through this channel, if there's something you want to get out of this that maybe you aren't getting right now, please drop me a line, send me a message on the Facebook page, personally, drop it in the comments on any of the YouTube channels. I read everything all day, every day. So if you drop something in there, I like to reply to you within the hour if I'm awake. So if you've got suggestions or ideas, drop them in because this is for you as much as it is for me. I'm having a blast and I want you to be able to enjoy it as well. But with that said, I want to move on to what I've got on the table. So I'm going to take you over now to my workbench. So here we go. Boof. Got my little piece of paper out because I was testing my zoom earlier on. Now to me on my screen it looks a little bit dull, so if it's not bright enough let me know and I'll try and enhance the image for you a little bit. Let me remove this piece of paper. So what I have been doing during the week is this Biovore. Now his arm keeps popping off because he's an old white metal model from the old Citadel range back in 3rd edition Warhammer 40k. So if you can remember back there, I think that was about 95 perhaps, maybe a little bit later. Yeah, perhaps 98. And I've always had this model since then. I actually prefer him over the newer plastic models. I just think he looks much better. I didn't have a base for him, so I had to get some of these MDF ones from Green Stuff World. More about how I actually got hold of this later on because that plays into a company that I want to talk about for you. So I had to get this one because it's 60mm. Now I'm sure I had a base with this one when I used to play with him, because I remember back in some days you used to not have bases for some units. But I thought it was a 40mm base. I got quite confused, so I put him on an old 40mm base because I had some, and it was so small. So I read up on it, and the new Biovore has a 60mm base. So I got some of these, a pack of 5 of them. They're just MDF, but they're absolutely brilliant for what they are. And I've just been sprayed in the base grey that I use. But because it's white metal, it's a bit of a clumsy model in the way that it fits together. Not as nice as some of the newer plastic kits that you can get. So this one, what I've done here, if I bring it up close to the camera so you can see a bit clearer, I've had to drill a little hole in the shoulder on both arms. You can see I had a couple of goes at trying to position it perfectly. It wasn't a very perfect fit. I cut a paper clip down because I had no brass rods, which is kind of the industry standard, I suppose. And then I used some new top quality super glue that I got also from Green Stuff World. So this arm also, I drilled a hole right through the body and pinned this arm. That one stayed at a bit of a weird angle, but I like different angles because it's supposed to be in motion, you know, it's a creature, it's not going to be just like a stock thing. But this one keeps on popping off every time I try and paint it, so I thought, you know, I'll just leave it off for now rather than cause myself some issues. The flesh tones, the yellow, I decided, as a couple of weeks ago we were talking about washes, etc. We were talking about, you know, tone it down. Don't just slap a layer of this stuff on and expect it to do all the work for you. That's not how they work. Although that kind of technique has its place, I wanted to be a little bit more subtler with it. Be a bit more subtler. I don't know if that's a real sentence. So in comparison to my other Tyranids of the same scheme, this one looks a little bit brighter, but that's okay because, you know, as I progress as a painter, my skills are going to change. I'm okay with that. The grey is yet to be done, so I'm going to wash that down with Null Oil, which is a matte black, or hopefully should be matte. And then I'll highlight it with some lighter greys, probably around about this sort of tone, so you can see the two differences there. This will darken down quite a bit, and I'll bring up a lot of the details and tidy it all up, because washes are great for that. If you've got sins aplenty, or like on this model, then you can cover a lot up with washes, like where transitions between two colours. So, like around the hand here, for example, it's quite messy. I can see it. So yeah, and then I'll give it several passes with a matte varnish. I've been matte varnishing it as I go because it's a white metal model. As I'm handling it now, I can see little bits of paint just starting to chip off, like on the hand here. There's a little bit of bare metal showing through there. That's the problem with the old white metal models. I really like the newer plastic kits, and you can see the development that GW brings with its moulding and its sculpting. But sometimes you do find an old model and it's got a little bit of a place in your heart, and this is one of them for me. I really like the old model Biovore. The new ones, I like them, but if you've seen them, they've got these weird forearm, I don't know, they look like cricket protective pads. They just don't sit well with me. So yeah, I like him. Maybe I'll get a couple more of them. Maybe I'll find them online. Whatever. Anyway, what I was doing with him, was experimenting with him, was the green colours here on like the, as my friend Ruben from Hostile Galaxy pointed out on Facebook, he called it spore sacs. I was trying to think of what they are. Spore sacs is a good name. If you're listening, Ruben, thank you very much. Spore sacs. I wanted them to look quite pustulant, as a word that was commended by Adrian last week. Pustulant is a good word. And I started doing them in like pallid colours, like dead flesh colours, things like you might find like the Death Guard, etc. But it was just, the colours blended away too easily with the yellow and they didn't stand out. I didn't want them to pop and be the focus. I wanted the focus to be on the difference between the grey and the yellow. But I found this colour, obviously everyone knows about this colour, the technical Tesseract Glow from Citadel. I've been studying it, trying to work out how it does, what it does, but if you let it settle, I've just shaken it, but if you let it settle, the bottom of the thing goes dark green and the top of the paint goes bright yellow. And the only way that I can determine how that works is that I think that the green pigment must be slightly denser. So when it sits in a pool or a blob, the green would sink lower and then it would reveal the yellow highlights. So it kind of runs into recesses and goes into that darker neon green and leaves the highlights of the neon yellow. It's fabulous stuff. I tried to tone it down a little bit with some washes and various stains and things, and it just ruined the effect completely. So went back to basics and started again, and I'm just going to try and, be careful how I apply it. It's so good. My partner drew a smiley face on the pot for me, so there you go. I approve of Citadel's technical Tesseract Glow. I think it's a really nice paint. Pick that up, have a play with it, especially if you're a Necron player, because obviously bright greens and neons, right? But enough about that. Today I want to paint my little Sherman Firefly in 15mm. I've been waiting to do this one since the end of September, when I took my old man to Bovington Tank Museum. It's just down a few hours away from us, and we popped down and spent the whole day at Tiger Day, and it was a wonderful day out. As a thank you, my dad bought me this little 15mm Firefly. It's one of my favourite tanks. I really like him. We'll talk a bit about him as we go on. But I've also been doing this thing here as well, and you can see the scale difference here. So not really to play games with, though you could, and I'm sure that would be quite fun, and you could do quite a detailed game with it. I don't know of anyone that exists. And then there's the little 15mm, and you can see the footprint that this thing holds compared to that 135th. It's amazing. The detail in this thing is astonishing. So if I just pop that turret off there, I didn't realise what it was I was actually making at the time, and I probably could have saved myself a couple of hours in working here. But on the inside of the turret, you actually have the breach mechanism and the lock mechanism for the escape hatch on the back of the turret. It's an incredible piece of kit for a model, it really is. You can't see this on the outside, and especially in the layout that I've done it with all the hatches closed. Perhaps you could have all the hatches open and you'd see a little bit in there if you peered in over the top. But what I thought would be really cool, and certainly something that I don't feel experienced enough to try yet, is you could, for fun, do a cutaway. So you could like cut one side of the turret away and do it like it was a museum piece. If you go to Bovington, they've got a Centurion tank down there. I think it's a Centurion, could be wrong. They have a tank anyway, and it's been cut in half, and you can walk between the two pieces, and you could do all sorts of similar ideas. That would definitely be in the realms of super ultra mega pro modelling. But anyway, it's in there. I had a blast making it all, and it kind of all moves as well, so it elevates. And you can see the lack of space in there. I've stood beside this tank, the Panther. It is enormous. It is the size of a small house. It is huge. But despite the size of it, even in comparison to other tanks, there's very little room inside. I mean, you can stand up for sure, but the loader had to stand here. That's his periscope. The commander would sit on this little seat here, and that's two people in there. And then the gunner's probably down the bottom as well. Or probably here. 3 people in there. It's ridiculous. It's an enormous tank. So I've got to now do all the wheels for it. I've got the sprockets on the front. They kind of spin. I hope that I can move the tracks because, you know, I like models to be tactile. It's kind of fun. But I've got all the wheels to go on there. So I've got like an under set of wheels to go along. Then I've got a middle set of wheels. And then I've got a top set of wheels. And all in all, on the drive wheels on both sides, totals 36 wheels. Then I've got the 2 drive wheels on the front and then the 2 guide wheels at the back. That's 40 wheels. I just finished prepping and sanding them yesterday. And then I got so blinded by wheels, I had to just put it down for a bit. And then I've got some paint racks and things to put on the side, but I'm going to, not paint racks, sorry, equipment racks, which I've yet to paint. So I thought I'd do the tank and then paint the racks and then put them on top, but you get where I'm going with it. This has become my life for the last few days. I lost myself in it, frankly, and it was good fun. But enough of that one for now. I can't put this thing back on. It's just me being a bit of a douche. Can I? Yes, I can. That is the correct answer. Wonderful. But what I wanted to do today is paint this little firefly up. I haven't painted this firefly up so far because I didn't have the colours for it. Because the firefly was a British tank. And though they are very similar to British colours, they are different. And you could just do it in olive drab, which I've got a whole set of olive drab here from AK Interactive. I've got the modulation set, and I spoke about these now for the last couple of weeks. So the modulation set has 6 different colours in there. Well, they're all the same hue, but they just go through from shadow right up to highlights. And you can play around with them, and there's several different methods of applying modulation sets. You can do like zenithal lighting, or you can do things that are really quite cartoony. And I kind of copied what you see on this image here, so a little bit of light kind of focusing down and to the front of the tank, leaving the back and the undersides more wreathed in shadow. And it's a beautiful paint. Like I really enjoyed painting the olive on a Sherman that I've got here in 28mm. I had such a lovely time painting it. It's wonderful. The other colours, the Germans colours like the Panzer Grey and the Dunkelgelb were really quite, though they were still fun, they were much more difficult to achieve that same sort of level of success. Perhaps I was just lucky, I don't know. But I couldn't find the colours that I wanted through AK Interactive, and they're a brand that I really enjoy using. So I started searching around, and I found what is called a smart set, so essentially the same thing, from Ammo by Miki Minez. And in here, it doesn't have the 6 colours, it has 4 colours, and I haven't opened them yet, so I thought it would be quite nice today to kind of go through it and kind of experience it together, and I'll show you. I might get it all completely wrong, but basically on here you can see on the front of these images, if I bring up a bit closer, you should be able to see that a couple of vehicles that are British vehicles on here, they commonly had like a dark green camo, which is different from the olive drab. And though, like I say, you could get away with it if you wanted to do it in olive, it wouldn't really matter. But I like to go that little bit further. I like to spend a bit of time with the colour schemes on all my Second World War tanks, and I wanted to kind of pay a little bit of a tribute to it. But they also use black as well, so where you can see like the camouflage patterns on this little vehicle here, that's just a mixture of dark greens, but they also use black as part of their camo. Doesn't come in here, this is all the green colours, but I've got black, that's fine. What I was going to do for now is just kind of do this in the dark greens and see what it comes up like. So let's put the Firefly to a side for a moment and open up this packet here. So this is my I've got British Brown 1941 to 1942. I've got Serve Drab. I've got Olive Drab. Oh, so there is an Olive Drab colour in there as well. And I've got British 1933 to 1942. Now, perhaps this isn't a modulation set. Perhaps this just offers me various different colours that were in service through the British forces in 1939 to 1945, I think the box actually said. So, rather than spray them on like a modulation set, perhaps I'll just pick a colour and see where it takes me. So, I need to cover up my surface here with my piece of paper. And here's my little Firefly. So to kind of give you an example of what the Sherman looks like, this is the Sherman, the standard American Sherman. I think this is a 76mm cannon on it. So right at the beginning of the war, they started out, the Sherman had a 75mm cannon. I'm not an expert, so I could be wrong on this. Please do correct me if you know better. the Sherman had a 75mm cannon. It was good for what it was at the beginning of the war, but then as the war arms race kind of proceeded, bigger, better tanks came out, things that were very, very common. The Germans had their Panzer IV, and then they started upgrading to the Panther, which was just a much larger, much heavier armoured tank. They had to get much better weapons because the rounds from the 75 would just bounce off these things all day long. So they made the 76, and the 76 had, it's only an extra millimetre in the diameter of the round, but the actual shell size in its length is impressive to say the least. It's basically like a Magnum round. But the Firefly was a British adaptation of the Sherman. So the British basically borrowed some or bought some on a Lend-Lease program, and then they realized that because they were going up against Tigers and Panthers, they needed some more punching power, and nothing really quite did it as efficiently as they wanted to. So the Firefly is called so because they decided that they would take an anti-aircraft cannon, a 17-pounder, and they would put it inside this thing. Now, to give you a kind of perspective on the size of this shell, the standard Sherman can fit, I believe, somewhere in the realms of 90 rounds inside it in a 75-76mm gun, I think, but only around about 20 in the Firefly because they're enormous. But that's all you really need, especially if you've got a good and accurate crew. The thing is, the gun didn't fit inside the tank, so when they got it in there was no room for anyone to stand, so they actually had to rotate it 90 degrees to one side, but it was still too long to actually fit in there. So you might notice that the size of the turrets here, that the Sherman's kind of got this sloping back at the back. This is a bit of a later Sherman, so it's almost the same sort of length. But this one's looking boxier at the back because they literally cut the back of this turret off and then had to weld a box around it to actually fit the gun inside. And it is renowned for one-shot kills on even their heaviest armour that was deployed by the Germans in World War II. And then as the war went on, this particular tank, the Firefly, saw somewhere in the region of 21 to 2200 tanks that were adapted in various different forms, and then it gave way to things like the Comet, I believe, which was a tank that was specifically designed to carry the 17-pounder and other high explosive, long range, high penetration cannons as well. So that's my history lesson. Let's just give this a go. I don't know if I've bought the right thing, but I'm quite keen to give it a go. I know these are British colours, so I've got here an olive drab, which I probably want to stay away from because I've got olive drab on my other Shermans and I wanted to depict a different kind of colour. So perhaps I'll go with this brown and just see where it takes me. I don't really mind. If you are interested in these little tanks, they are about £7 or £8 in the UK. So I should imagine they're probably around about $9-10 if you're in the US, and they're just fabulous. You can put them together within about 30 minutes if you've played with them before, if you're quite experienced. And I just think they're just really charming. I've said it before, they're just delightful little things to play with. And there's several different games that you can play out there. Have a go, pick one up, pick up your favourite tank. They also do modern ranges as well. So if you're not really into historical tank games, then there are like modern games to play, so you can play with them with Abrams as well if you wanted to. Let me just get my lights out of the shot. There we go. Okay, cool. So inside the MiG Jimenez bottles, you might be able to hear there's a little ball bearing inside there, which the AK interactive paints don't have. So that's a nice little step up. You can buy little ball bearings for your dropper bottles or even for your standard Citadel paints if you wanted to kind of give them a shake and just agitate it a little bit. But these haven't been used before. They've probably been sat in a shop or in a warehouse somewhere, so I'm just going to give it a really good go. I cleaned out my airbrush the other day and I've just given it a little bit of a blast with some water, so hopefully it will give us some results. Now, I've bought several different products throughout the last couple of weeks. I always use airbrush thinner because it just kind of helps paint from getting too thick and building up, because it can dry in the airbrush and cause premature blockages. Basically means you've got to clean it out a lot. I also recently bought some flow improver, and I've got so many bottles out here on my table that I can't actually see it. There it is, flow improver. And what that does is it basically just kind of slows down the drying times of your paints. So if you'll get a little bit of build up inside your airbrush, then it just kind of stops it from drying and forming a crust, which then further paint builds up on. So yeah, I use about, if I was to put about 10 drops of this into my airbrush, I would put about 1 drop of each in there. Different pigments, different brands, or whatever of paints have different viscosities, and it's just a bit of experience. And I'm a total noob when it comes to all of that. Right. So Jeff Lacey, that's my dad. Oi, oi. Hello, Dad. Thanks for joining us. So I've got my airbrush. I'm just going to put straight from the bottle into the hopper. Let me just open up this one here. The seal is broken. Yeah, if you buy stuff from Green Stuff World, you actually have to nip the top of the bottles off, I've discovered. So I'm going to put, this is the brown, I'm just going to make sure. Yeah, wonderful. I'm just going to put, let's go for about 10-15 drops in there. Now some people who are probably much more experienced at this than I am, just go ahead and just squirt an amount, because they kind of, I suppose if you're making coffee or whatever, you're just kind of used to putting the amounts in there. I'm not, and I like to measure everything that goes in. So I don't know if my lights are bright enough. It all seems quite dim on my screen today, so apologies if that is coming through nice and dim, but I've always realised on playback that not the case. So I've got some airbrush thinner. So I just put a drop of this in here. Boop, there we go. And I'm also going to put in a drop of airbrush flow improver. I stammer at the best of times, so sometimes when I'm saying different words, blah 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 blah, yeah, it all gets kind of merged into one. And then, cool. That might not seem like an awful lot, but I suppose I've only got a small amount of stuff actually in the hopper there. Get an old brush that you don't really care for, and just kind of give it a mix around. I used to use like a little cocktail stick. And it wasn't really mixing it very well. And one day I just saw someone on a YouTube tutorial just using a brush. I was like, yeah, why haven't I thought of that? So I did. So Jeff says in the comments, just got in, where is Kyle? Yeah, if you are just tuning in, Kyle last minute basically said that he had an urgent errand to go and attend to, and was unfortunately unable to make it. It was a real shame, because last week he had those blood angels that he's been absolutely looking forward to painting those models, and today was the day that he was going to do it, and unfortunately it's just not come through for him. He had to go dash off and do something else, so he made his apologies, and perhaps he will be here next week. More about our times for the show next week a little bit later on. So I've got here this dark brown. Is quite an interesting colour. I'm just going to, from the front to the back, yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just get a paint on here. It's got an interesting smell. The smell is very different from all the other ones. Perhaps that's nature's way of saying you should be wearing a mask. I'm in a well ventilated room. It may not look like it on the screen here, but it's pretty good. I find airbrushing such a satisfying feeling. I originally bought the airbrush for painting horde armies, because I play Tyranids, and obviously that involves, well, my favourite technique anyway, it involves having lots of little things running around on the battlefield, and when you're painting 40, 50, 60 little aliens, it's just, you know what, just go buy an airbrush. If you are interested in learning how to airbrush, there's lots of tutorials out there on YouTube, but if you want to hear it from me, again, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, if it's one of those things that you want to see more of or see me do differently, then I more than happily do like a tutorial. Getting a bit of a blockage in the end of my airbrush here. So you can see that it's starting to spatter a little bit, so I wonder why that is. It might be that I didn't clean it out properly. But what I've got here is just a piece of cotton. I used to use the cotton swabs, but I don't like the plastic waste. They're essentially straws with cotton on the end, and I don't really like that. So I take the little protective guard off at the end of my needle, and then I can actually wipe the needle down. It's so important to do this with a steady hand and just be careful, because if you buckle even on an almost microscopic level that needle, it's all over. You've got to buy a new one, and they're not cheap. So they're on there to protect you if you're putting it down or cleaning it out. But you can do it without. So there we go. That's a bit more flowy. I think I've just got a bit of a minor blockage in there. I'll clean it out in a bit, and I'll show you the inside of an airbrush. So already I can see that this colour is quite different from the olive drab, and this is why I wanted to do them different. Again, my screen looks quite dark to me, perhaps it's not to you. Let me know if you can't see. But I can see a very distinct difference between the two colours, and that's kind of what I wanted to do there. The Firefly was used by the Americans and the Canadians, especially because the Canadians had, I think they formed the Dragoons with the British. I think, I could be wrong, do need to research that. But yeah, the Canadians also used the Firefly along with the British commonly. So there were different camouflages and things out there. So, you know, but also do what you want. It's your model if you want to get one. There we go, got a bit of flow. Every now and again I just kind of spray to the side of the model. I'm getting a bit of spatter there, which normally means I haven't got my mixture right inside, or there's a blockage, or yeah, maybe the pressure on my compressor. So I just check it every now and again, spray to the side so that I don't get spatter all over the model. But on a little 15mm model like this, I'm not really that fussed. But if I was doing that Panther in 1/35, if I was doing that, then I'd make sure that the airbrush was working properly well before I did it, because yeah, the amount of time I spent building that one, mental if it all went wrong. It's flowing a bit better now, so probably a blockage has passed. Probably means that it'll happen again quite soon though. You can see that there's a bit of a gap here between the panels on the front and to the side. If you are a perfectionist like I am and you strive for the very best, you might be inclined to try and get rid of that. There was very little I could do about it by the time I realised. But also, if you stood beside a Second World War tank, you'll notice that they are not put together very well. I was absolutely shocked to see the gaping holes, not that were caused by damage on these tanks, but just where they were haphazardly put together. I suppose because they needed so many of them all the time that there were holes big enough for you to put your arm through up to the shoulder and reach inside. It was quite shocking, because now of course modern tanks are often watertight. They actually got like a little biome inside that protects the drivers or the crew. Anyway, back to the underside now, where I probably should have started, to be fair. If it was going to be the wrong colour or the airbrush was going to play up. But yeah, whatever. So if you are painting tonight, this is something that Kyle normally says, so I never often remember to say it, but if you're painting tonight, let me know in the live chat what it is that you're painting and how you plan to proceed. I'm always interested to know what everybody else is doing. Like I say, this is a painting club, not just watching me. Tell me what you are up to, what game it is that you're playing. If it is a game, perhaps you're just painting something and you've come on here for the company. Let us know. This is a really nice colour for a brown. I don't know if this is actually even a colour. Like I say, I just bought the set thinking it was what I wanted, and I just thought it would be nice to kind of have an experimentation as a show rather than being the boffin who knows it all. I don't know it all. That's not what I'm trying to say. You get what I'm trying to say. I don't want to be the guy who pretends to know everything. I'm just not frightened to have a go. I'm actually finding it quite difficult to get this paint exactly where I want it. And that might be because, again, I think I've got a blockage in my airbrush somewhere. It could just be that the paint behaves differently. Every paint behaves in different ways, and it's quite fun playing with them and learning what each one does. Every now and again the paint just kind of changes as it comes out of the airbrush, and you go like, oh, that was a blockage that just passed. Kind of like driving a car, you do get quite a feel for it as you're actually using it, and it just takes practice. That sounded like a blockage. Never mind. Oh. So perhaps this colour that I'm painting here isn't like the whole base kind of colour that I want. Perhaps it'll be like a good sort of primer, if you like, that will kind of show through the layers that I put on top. Like I've got the olive drab. I've got the olive drab here. I've got the service drab 1941 to 1944, and then I've got the khaki green. I might just try and use them as highlights, perhaps. I wonder. I'm going to use it as like a modulation set. I think that's what I'm going to do. Oh, it's a bit wet under there. It is fun. I am loving it. Oh, Luke Galia, I believe is pronounced. Do let me know if I say your name wrong. I loathe to offend anyone. It says, finishing Sisters of Battle. That's been on my desk for a week, and doing the weapons for my final Warglaive Imperial Knight. Oh, the Warglaives. Yeah, those are like the smaller kind of walker units for the Titans. The Knight Titans. I really like them. I think those are probably better than the actual Knights. That's just a personal thing. Just aesthetically, I think they look really cool. They've always been a bit beyond my price range for, I feel like, maybe the level that I can go in and make it look nice. I don't want to spend like £100 on a model on a knight. I keep calling them Titans, on a knight, and do a bad job on it and go like, oh, I wasted £100. I feel like I need to kind of practice before I get there. I feel that I'm getting there. But the Warglaive, yeah, cool. I like that. Do feel free to share your photos, etc. on the Facebook page over at Easy8 on Facebook. You can search for it by just typing in Easy8 Online Painting Club. Go to the community tab and you can share posts, photos, questions, information, whatever you like. We got about 57 followers, I believe, up to now this week. So it's slow going, but the progress is being made. We're becoming a bit more known. And for that, I've got you guys to thank. So wonderful. Thank you very much. We are actually getting a bit bigger in the States as well. We've actually had, through kind of not merging, but I suppose allying with the Hostile Galaxy magazine and Ruben over there in the States, we share a group page that we're still kind of, he's developing it, I'm doing very little with it, apart from just sharing posts on there. But we've had some people over there in the States kind of coming over, having a look at the Facebook page for Easy8 and liking it. So thanks very much for kind of coming along and joining and following the page. Obviously they're about anywhere from sort of 5 to 8 hours behind the live show, but obviously you can just kind of tune in if it suits you to the time, or you can just go on YouTube and watch it on a playback and kind of just, you know, have some company retrospectively. But you know, like I say, this is a painting club. It's not a tutorial. I'm not trying to be anything I'm not. I just kind of want to provide you guys with a little bit of company while we get through bare plastic armies, which is just, it bothers me. So, I think, do you know what bothers me even more is having armies that are fully painted on a grey landscape. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. We've got some more comments going in. Jeff says, I've been roofing a medieval town all day. Think I'm going slightly mad. Yeah, I've seen it, and it's possibly one of the most incredible models I think you've ever made. It's beautiful in every respect. If you're interested in seeing any of his work, you can pop over to purplelioncreations.co.uk as the website, or over to see more works in progress, etc. You can head over to Purple Lion Creations on Facebook and go and have a look at the 28mm scale medieval buildings from St Albans. They are just beautiful, really, really cleanly presented, but they really do look the part for medieval buildings. Go and have a little look. They're wonderful. And then Adrian says, can't go slightly mad if you're already slightly mad, Jeff. Okay, cool. Well, if you guys are going to name call, I'm going to stay out of that. You can talk about that amongst yourselves over there in the live chat. That's for you. Right, cool. Well, that's that colour on there, brown. I wasn't expecting it to be that colour, and you can see the difference already between the turret there and the hull, the unpainted kind of green colour, where we've got to so far. So I'm just going to keep on going because I'm enjoying myself. Again, my screen to me looks like all the brightness is all completely wrong. So if you're struggling to see it, do drop it in there. Like if I watch it back on playback and it's just because you guys haven't said anything, like, yeah, that'll be it. To see a different side of me, you won't. I'm not that guy. Paint's flowing a bit better now. I think it probably got to like a little pocket of flow improver or something inside the hopper there. Oh, this is the dodgy bit. I should have done that bit at the beginning, and then while I was doing the hull, I could have come back and then picked it up because it would have been dry and then done the barrel. But if you're like me and you don't think ahead, yeah, now we've just got to sit here and wait. So if you don't mind. Yeah, here we go. Cool. Right. So, yeah, do you know, I've done so much research. I've got books sat beside me, plenty about British colours and how they're all kind of like bottle greens, and then they use black as a camo striping. And I thought this was the right colour, the modulation for a modulation set. But I'm looking at going like, maybe it's not. I'm a little bit nervous about going for it, but I'm just going to do it. So what I'm going to do once I've got this turret finished is I'm going to use this colour as like the shadow effects and the darkest lower tones, and then I'm going to work it through olive drab, and like I showed you on that picture earlier, I'm going to kind of work from the front slightly elevated, and I'm going to kind of bring in sort of zenithal lighting, if you like. It's not because I want it to be object source lighting, it's just the way that I like it to work. Now if you remember when I did the tiger a couple of weeks ago, here's the tiger, I actually started with like a mid-tone, and then I went darker, and then I worked up lighter where I wanted it. But that's because this a much larger model, I say much larger, it's just a bigger tank, and there are 6 colours, so I felt that there was a bit more freedom to play around with. So even if this is the right colour that I'm working with here, I still feel that starting off dark and just working my way up gradually is probably the better approach here. More comments going in. If you're going to try to the end of the barrel colours, yep, you guys are talking about going mad still. It is slightly dark on the screen. I apologise for that. In a minute, when I'm kind of working this out, I'll see if I can go in and affect the brightness levels of the camera. What I don't want to do is is touch something and ruin the whole live stream, because, like I say, I'm nervous and I'm a bit of a technical idiot. What happens if I bring the lights in further? It just kind of bleaches everything out, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. If I bring the lights up, is that gonna help? I've kind of got like this auto brightness balancing thing going in there, but perhaps if I just bring it up a little bit, that seems to be a little bit better, doesn't it? Yeah, every week something happens where the settings change, my microphone resets or something like that. I'm sure eventually I'll get the hang of it. Bear with me, it's a learning progress. How dense does the airbrush cover, say, a light colour over a slightly darker one? It depends a lot on the paint that you're using. It's a good question. What I'll do is I'll do a patch down here on this thing. This is the darkest tone, and I'll get the light tones out later, and I'll gradually go over them, and I'll do like light coverings and show you. But generally, it's pretty good going. So if I just do, this is the sort of pace that you want to be working at here, and I'll build up a heavier spot here. You'll probably see it where I've actually been working. And like painting with a brush, you would like, it's best to do like lots of thinner layers, and it takes this is where the practice with the airbrush comes in. Really, it's all about the control of the trigger. So you've got like a double action trigger, pushing down releases the air, and then pulling back releases the paint into the flow. So the harder you push down, the more air comes out. The more you pull back, the more paint's released. So you've kind of got this double action that you can play around with, and you can have like an intense small pinpoint if you get nice and close to the paper, like so, or you can do like a kind of a wider area, but just by pulling back. So you've got a lot of control over the dual action trigger and by the distance from the model as well. Obviously, if you get up really close, what you're doing is you're saturating a small amount. It's the same amount of paint essentially as the wider burst, but so you will be coating an area. But with 2 or 3 coats, I can go right over that, probably in white, probably in about four coats of light dusting. So it does really well. That is being very general, and that is my own experience. There's probably a professional out there going like, well, actually, here's an equation, work it all out. I'd be very interested to hear that. But once I realised that when I first bought this airbrush, I was using the wrong sort of paints, my experience changed entirely, and it's when you get past the fear of using an airbrush, because like Kyle was saying about using different types of paints to what you're used to, it's just get past that fear of doing something different and just experiment and play with it. It's very difficult to break it, and if you do, it can always be repaired or replaced or etc. So don't be afraid to have a go, and it just takes practice. The very first miniature that you ever picked up and painted with a paintbrush, probably by your standards now, looked ridiculous in comparison, and it's just about starting over again with your experience and knowledge gained so far. I just made a lot of mistakes and didn't realise that I was making mistakes and was kind of blaming it on I don't practice very well, but actually I was just using brush paints. Don't do it. You can turn brush paints into airbrush paints. It just requires a lot of thinner, but you might as well just go and buy airbrush paints, because airbrush paints can still be applied by brush. They are just thinner. They have like the viscosity is much lower. So if you pull paint out of a dropper bottle for a brush, it's going to be a lot thicker, and you just water it down either with water. That doesn't have the same effect, but you want to put a thinner into it, and it kind of spreads it out and keeps the tension of the liquid is different than just applying water into it. But if you put thin paint down with a brush, still easy to do. I almost exclusively use airbrush paints, even for normal brush. So I've got through that base coat thing. Wonderful, very happy with that. I've still got a little bit left in the hopper. Now this is where I'm not so good with an airbrush, where people who are particularly pro with one, is that they would now apply their next paint into the hopper, and it would automatically blend in the hopper, and as you spray, you get an automatic transition. I'm not that good, so I've now got to flush through. So I like to make sure that all areas on here are covered. And I can see there's a couple of patches, so I'll just make sure, like on the underside where the wheels are. Wonderful. Get in there in the bogies. He said bogies. Kind of cakes it in there a little bit, so I'll probably just ease off, and I'll just deal with the fact that I've now got to burst this paint out. Now what you want to do when you're flushing it out is you want to have somewhere to basically empty it out into. If you're going to get an airbrush, you want to get like a cleaning pot. It doesn't do anything other than it's just a tight receptacle to spray the leftovers in there, and you can see there's like a little dirty fluid rolling around on the inside. It's got a little vent on it, and you can replace the things on it, but because I've got to put it in there, I'm going to replace the protective cap that I took off a minute ago, just back over the end, so it protects the needle. So if I stick it in, I'm not going to bend the end of that nozzle, that needle. That needle is about 30 quid if you want to buy a new one, so don't bend it. Basically, I just sprayed it through until you hear the tone change. There's a lot of vapor coming out of there. Still got a little bit of paint left in, so I'm just going to flush it through a little bit of water, and hopefully that will loosen it all up. This is sort of where I might get a bit of a blockage now. I've been chatting a little bit, so the paint might have been sitting in there. The flow improver's probably struggling to keep up now with the drying time, but no, it's dropping out, it's coming out, it's cleaning. You can hear the sound change when it runs out. There you go, that tells me that the chamber is empty as such. I like to put just a couple more drops in there. There we go, wonderful. Now I'm not going to clean it down every single time I use a different colour, every time I change colour. I'm just going to kind of flush it through a little bit of water. If you've got a bit of a blockage problem, or you want to make sure that your colours are out, because sometimes you still will get a bit of residue coming out, then you can put a bit of cleaner through it. I've been using, and I'm almost out of, AK Interactive Perfect Cleaner. And then I decant it into little dropper bottles. So I've got these little dropper bottles that are unlabelled with pure water in, and then I've got one with neat cleaner in it. I'll use that one for doing a deep clean, or if I've got a big blockage, I'll put that straight in there. But to make it go further, I've got 50-50 water and cleaner. I learned that from a guy on YouTube. So for general or sort of cleaning a little bit deeper, just use a 50-50 mix. But that's pretty good. My mouth is getting pretty dry, and I've got a glass of water. Yum yum. Brilliant. So I'm going to move on to olive drab now. I could have just researched what was in the pack, and I did research what was in the pack before I got them, just what colours they were, because I thought maybe the pack is a bit more expensive, because, you know, it's a pack, and hey, come and buy this, you know, like a targeted marketing strategy or something. But actually it was much more expensive to buy them all individually. Give it a good shake, because this is the first time that I've opened this one up. That's quite a satisfying feeling, that, actually. The sound, I like that. I like the fact that these come with little ball bearings inside them as well. The Vallejo ones don't. They don't come with little ball bearings inside. Right. Okay. So again, I don't know what this pigment's going to be like, so I'm just going to go with probably about 7 or 8 drops, maybe a bit more. See what it's like. I've got the hiccups, so if you hear me hiccuping, sorry. Let's put a couple more in there. Let's be frivolous. I don't know what I've done with my brown colour. There it is. I'm going to put that one over there, make sure that I don't go back to it by accident. And those are my 2 lighter colours, and that's my drab. And again, I'm going to go with airbrush thinner. Just 1 drop of that in there. I could tell the difference already when I started using airbrush paints to not airbrush paints, with the amount of thinner that I suddenly realised I didn't need. And I was putting 6 or 7 drops in and it still wasn't fluid enough. And then I get back to using normal airbrush paints. 1. Right, I've got a bit of tissue here because I've got my brush in water. I just want to make sure it's clean before I go stick it in the airbrush to give it a mix. So again, straight in the top here. And if you tilt it back a little bit as well, the paint doesn't sit forwards in this kind of chamber inside, and it kind of comes back into the hopper a bit more. You can get larger hoppers for it too. The larger ones have caps on to kind of stop spills and things. A little hole in the top, so you know, there's no kind of vacuum created inside as you're using it. I have thought about getting them, but I thought I'd build up my experience a bit more first. We're almost at a point for a break, so probably in the next sort of 10 minutes ish we'll have a little interval. I'm probably going to carry on working through because I'm enjoying playing with these paints, but yeah, if you suddenly find yourself needing to go get a drink or have a break or something, we've got one probably coming up in a bit. Right, okay, so all mixed in. I've got a bit of flow improver, got a bit of airbrush thinner in there, and that is the olive drab over that brown colour there. So for Adrian, and that good question earlier on about how it covers over the thicker or the darker sort of undertones, if I go over with a light green, the lighter green here, you can see that going over that dark brown, there is, again, probably because my brightness levels on the screen is quite difficult to see, but I can see there's like a shadow now underneath that layer of green that I've put down. You can see the green kind of around that brown, but now I've kind of got a shadow, and where I've graded that brown underneath, kind of that shadow loses intensity as it goes on over. Can I cover this dark patch over here? I most certainly can. That's all pure green on there now, but it's dark because of the shadowy colour underneath. I'll come back and make another pass over that in a bit with some more green and see if I can cover that colour over entirely. So I've got this brown colour all over the Firefly. I probably want to do what I was doing over here, and I want to cover the whole thing now in one layer of this olive drab, and that will shadow a green colour rather than just being a brown, and then I can build up more intense greens at the front. So, but I do want to make sure that it is different from the olive drab US vehicles, so throughout I'm going to be bringing this little fella in and out. That's my little alarm on my watch saying, hey, you're nearly at break time, because we don't have Kyle here, so I've got to have little reminders. Let me just get rid of that. There we go. Kyle's very good at picking up my slack. So trying to be a bit more gentle as I go towards the back in certain areas, because I don't want it to be all green, but I do want it to be like, so I'm going to build a bit of intensity on this corner here and this corner here, and then kind of just spread it out a little bit. There we go. Get a little bit into the bogies in there, but I want it to be quite dark in there. And I can kind of tilt the vehicle sort of here, and I can come down at a bit of a bird's eye view, but at an angle, so I kind of get like a natural shadow effect. Oh, I've got a little moth under my lights. Go away, don't want to be airbrushed. I'll have the PETA organisation after me. Cruelty to moths with an airbrush. Now on the underside here is very, very brown, stark contrast to now where there's more green at the front. So just a light dusting. You can see how very little that affects the white paper there. There we go. That's quite a nice effect, that actually. Wonderful. Right, over to the turret. I did it again. I did the turret second. Like, that's just how it's going to go from now on. Sorry. Right, now I could leave the barrel, I could leave it dark, or actually go up right quite highlight with it and make quite a centerpiece to draw the eye to. But I'll show you a picture after the break of what a Firefly actually looked like, and they actually had designs drawn on the barrels to hide the fact that they were 17-pounder cannon. Because they were so destructive, enemy forces tried to identify them early, so we had to camouflage them. And that camouflage pattern on it will do more than enough to kind of draw your eye to the gun. So I'm not going to do anything special to kind of bring that out. So on the Sherman, when I first started painting Shermans, I try to kind of give a bit of highlight to this rounded edge at the top here, and then I kind of fade it out going into the center, and then across this sort of natural curve in front on top of the barrel there, the cannon mount. Oh, come on. This olive drab colour is just, it's not just the colour itself, it's the actual paint. Even the AK interactive paint is just such a lovely colour. It just flows and it works. Green is such a wonderful colour to play with. I've lost my ability to control the trigger. Oh, probably went a bit heavy there, but that's fine, that's okay. Let's see where that takes us. I'll do another pass over here. See how that goes over that brown. It's quite a bright, well I say bright, I mean olive drab's a dark green, but it's, yeah, not being affected so much now by the brown shadow underneath. I'm probably going to leave the olive drab now. I've got quite a bit left in the airbrush, but you know, you learn as you go. Just because I think that if I go too heavily olive, it's going to come out looking too much like the American standard Sherman, and I want it to be different, even if it's just a little bit. So I'm going to keep it a darker tone to try and create that like sort of British darker green camouflage colour, and then I'll work with the highlights and just be gentle with it and see where that goes. Of course, what we want to do now is we want to have a bit of a break. So if you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to go stretch your legs or refocus your eyes, go get yourself another drink. I'm certainly going to grab myself another one. We'll be back in about sort of 5-10 minutes, or when my music for the intermission runs out. So I will see you shortly. Hello and welcome back. I've been working studiously through the interval to kind of get the levels of green that I wanted on my Firefly. I took a photo of it, sat side by side with a standard Sherman, and I've posted it on the Easy 8 Facebook page. So if you want to have a look, if the light levels are a bit weird here in the studio, head on over to Facebook page and you can see it there. It's a bit dark at the moment because it's all dark greens and browns. I've adjusted some of the lighting. You might be able to see I look like a bit more of a shadow. I've brought the key light at the top there, brought that down a bit closer. It seems to be helping. I've also discovered that the covers for my desk lights here had plastic film over them that I couldn't see, so I've taken that off and it seems to have made things a bit brighter, but hopefully I can adjust things on the fly if it's still too dark here. I understand that I'm working with darker colours than normal, but let's see where this goes. Normally at this point I talk about community spotlight and I give people with their businesses etc. Shout outs and things, and normally I do that with Kyle. Kyle's not here, but I'm still going to go ahead anyway. So this week's shout out is something a little bit different than what we normally look at. I found this gentleman, I was crawling through Facebook pages and forums and groups, etc. And I thought that I would share some of this fantastic work with you. Let me head on over now to the community spotlight. So this gentleman is Pablo Iglesias Lopez. I found him on his basically sharing from his own Facebook page to various different areas. He seems to favour painting busts. Now, these busts, you can see that he's got the model grip underneath there, so you can see this is probably about the size of your palm of your hand. He has an immense gallery to go and have a look at various different models and busts and things, ranging through various different genres, and I really encourage you to go and have a look. He has done other things like dioramas, etc., but like I say, he seems to favour the bust. And I don't really see an awful lot of busts being painted nowadays. I know Forge World did a few busts some years ago, but they've since discontinued those lines. And it's nice to see this kind of statue thing coming back again. Oh, well, coming back, but someone doing them. This is the first one that grabbed my attention. Hi Ruben, you're watching live. Wow, that's amazing. Look, I'll have to check that out. It's nice to know that I've got viewers from the States watching live right now. Welcome to the show. It is fabulous work. What really brought my attention to this one, though everything is exceptionally good on it, I thought that if I tried really, really hard, I could probably do the work, the same sort of level as the metalwork on the shoulder there, like sort of bionics, and even the cloth on the shirt. I was like, actually, that's quite simple techniques, but look at the lighting that's on that skin. Skin is something, or flesh tones, like normal human flesh tones, is something that I've always struggled with, and it's something that I would like to venture into, hopefully in the new year as part of this show, is like kind of practicing flesh tones. But he hasn't just kind of got shadows, natural shadows. He's actually got like a zenithal lighting going on there as well. And if you just look around the mouth and the nose and under the eyes, it's incredible. And that to me was one of the more basic busts that I saw this gentleman had painted. If we move on to the next bust here, this one again, I chose this one out of his extensive gallery because it really shows off the flesh tones, and again the sort of the softer lighting. It's obviously we're dealing here with an elf lady of some kind, and if you look really carefully, she's also got freckling, which is just phenomenal. And I think that the whole approach, the whole sort of display here is quite soft, and there's not one thing that really stands out, like, oh, look at this weapon, or look at this feature, look at this item with clothing. This is just like a display of flesh painting and lighting, and I just think it's just phenomenal. And if you look on the face on one side there, it almost goes down to like a white colour. It's just, yeah, I wonder if that's been brush painted or if that's been airbrushed. Maybe it's a mixture of the two, but there are some people out there that can do some astonishing effects that you think be airbrushed, but actually all done by brush. Anyway, so I thought that those two were particularly good for flesh tones. This next bust is one that I found really interesting because it doesn't take an awful lot to notice that there's very little colour in this. there's been some blues and whites and greys and things used in here to kind of create a general tone. If you think back a couple of episodes where we talk about the colour wheel with warm colours, cold colours, and then lighting and saturation and things like that, this is just everything here is creating a kind of a cooler tone, but the face colours are ever so slightly warmer. So even though there's nothing bright and outstanding that kind of like has a big neon arrow that says look here, your eye is automatically drawn to the focal point of this very wise warrior or knight or whoever he is. It's kind of drawn to his face, and he seems to just have like a commanding presence. Such small use of colours creating such a wonderful effect, and I hope that one day I can produce something even just remotely close to that. It's just phenomenal. Again, he's got like armour on him, like he's got chainmail armour on the shoulder there, and I actually have a collection of chainmail, and that looks real to me. But there's no metalwork in there as well. That's all done with just non-metallic colours, from what I can tell. I've had very little to do with communication with this gentleman because I think he's very, very busy. But yeah, an outstanding piece of work. Didn't go into any of the detailing that you can see there on the chest, and he's got like the brooches that hold like a cloak or something on them there, and he's just kept it all very, very subtle, and all your attention is brought into the face. I think that's wonderful. Anyway, over to the next one. Here we go. We see something a bit more familiar here, which is the Space Marine. I don't know who made this model, if it is a sculpt that he had done himself or someone else made for him. But what I really liked about this one, I like Space Marines. Who doesn't like Space Marines? But this one uses like a difference between warm and cold colours. Again, the warmer colours bringing your attention to the sword, which is obviously kind of glowing, and it's creating a lighting effect. This is something that I've spoken about a couple of episodes that I'm sure most of you are aware of, which is OSL, or Object Source Lighting, and it's something that I would like to have a go at. I would like to kind of get through my backlog of unpainted models before I kind of go anywhere near that sort of level of expertise, and hopefully by that point I would have built up my skills enough to have a go at that. Everything about that model to me is just great. Even the face that guy has, he's supposed to be like a veteran, battle hardened super warrior or whatever, but he just looks so calm when he's drawing the sword, and it just, the whole thing, this is what I like, is it tells a story. Someone's probably gonna die. It's probably where we're going with that one there. And then the last bust here is again, leaving the realms of 40k probably, and we've got here some sort of apocalyptic, potentially road warrior. What drew me to this one, and it took me a second to really kind of to get it, is look at the lenses on those goggles. Just focus in there for a second, because that looks like that there's possibly a layer of plastic that's been put in there to kind of give you the goggles effect, but on closer inspection I'm fairly certain that that's been painted in. So those goggles had a smooth surface as a model, and then he's gone in and painted that hair effect and the skin effect under there, and under the reflection on it as well, potentially with a gloss layer over the top to kind of do it. But I reckon that this gentleman is such a skilled painter that he didn't have to do that, and I think that is way beyond my skill as a painter, but I just thought it was such a wonderful piece of work to showcase that I just had to include it in today's show. So this is the works of, or some of the works of the many works by Pablo Iglesias Lopez, and you can find him just by searching his name simply in Facebook, and he has got a whole range of different models for you to go and have a look at, and I encourage you, go over and have a look. So that's Community Spotlight for today. Brilliant works there. Where am I? Here I am, back in the studio. So here's me. I've painted 2 colours, and I'm about an hour and 15 into the show, and there's someone like that painting things like that. It's just incredible. If you have miniatures that you would like to have displayed here on the show at Community Spotlight, please get in touch with me. You can drop me a line through Facebook, you can drop personally, you can put it in the comment section, or you can drop it in a live chat if you want to. It doesn't have to be the most amazing work ever. We are all at different levels of painting, and I'm certainly right down there. And if you just want to show it off, maybe get some praise for something that you think you're doing particularly well in, or a model that you're proud of, or if you would like to open it up for discussion and have the feedback of the community kind of give you some criticism and get you on the right directions for where you're looking to kind of improve, then by all means send me your models, send me your pictures, and we will show them and talk about them here. Also, I like to give a little bit of time here to talk about shout outs for people who have their own businesses. I always shout out about Ruben over at Hostile Galaxy. Without him and the help that he's given me, I'd have half the confidence I'd have to do what I do here. So thanks again for Hostile Galaxy, Ruben. Please go over to the website, hostilegalaxy.com, or pop over to the Facebook page as well. Get yourself subscribed or buy a copy of one of the issues that have come out already. There's 2 issues that are out. I'm in the first one. Yeah, I'm famous. Third one's due out very, very soon. I buy them, and they're a fantastic magazine. Go and have a look. That's Hostile Galaxy. Purple Lion Creations, my dad's business. Bespoke models tailor-made to your designs. If you want something a bit more outstanding on the table and you want to save and get something particularly nice as a centerpiece perhaps, get in contact with Purple Lion Creations. Again, you can find him on Facebook or on the website purplelioncreations.co.uk. Charlie Foxtrot Models is another local provider of laser cut MDF terrain models. If you need yourself, if you want to get yourself like a little village, or if you want to get yourself a nice centerpiece church and you want it all in MDF laser cut terrain, then you want to go to Charlie Foxtrot, because the guy just has an unparalleled attention to detail and the quality is fabulous. And again, you can get in contact with him via email. You can also get in contact with him through Facebook, and you can also go and have a look at his website at Charlie Foxtrot. All the links to all of those locations are in the description to this video. Please, by all means, go over, click over there, tell him that I sent you there, and you're going to have a little look and just peruse through the collections that you got over there. I'd also like to mention here, I mentioned them last week briefly, but I want to kind of give them a bit more of an effort to kind of describe who they are. But Just Play Games in Liverpool, in the north of the UK, for those outside of the UK who don't know where Liverpool is. I was perusing through the internet a little while ago trying to find modelling supplies, because I like to test out stuff from Green Stuff World. You probably know a lot about them. They are a company based in Spain, and they supply so many different ranges of modelling and hobby supplies. It's just unreal. They do so many different ranges of paints, chameleon ranges, neon fluorescent pigments. The list just goes on. I've bought several products from them that are new, and I'm going to try them out this week. I'm going to show them to you in a minute. But there's always a bit of a wait to get things from Spain, and then here in the UK with Brexit looming over us as well, we don't know how that's going to affect us with deliveries. And you also have to pay a bit more to get things shipped over. So I started looking around to see if there was a UK supplier, and I came across Play Games UK. They are a modelling and hobby supplies superstore, and they also seem to have like a games drop-in event, so you can go and book tables and play your war games, play your tabletop games, Magic the Gathering, anything from Games Workshop, but whatever you want to do, they cater for your needs. And they have an extensive range of almost every brand that you could probably want, and some that I'd never even seen before. And I ordered a load of paints and airbrush products and things from them, and some other bits and pieces, and I got my box about 2 days later with a personalised handwritten letter inside saying, hey, best of luck with products XYZ, I think you're going to love them, signed Rich. And I just thought that was wonderful. And then I realised that I'd missed some products off, so I made another order, put in the little comment section in there like, I think your service is brilliant, thank you very much, I'm having tons of fun with the products I've just bought. And then I got the box through a couple of days later, and they remembered who I was and had written another handwritten message in there saying, like, thank you for your kind words, we're glad that you enjoyed the service. So I gave them a phone call, and I spoke to Richie directly, who I believe is at least the proprietor of the business, and he's such a lovely gentleman and was so keen to learn about Easy 8 and what we do here. And we have started discussions very early doors, mind you, nothing's been decided on at all, we just kind of passed information back, but we're looking at affiliation, so I might be able to supply links to buy products through Easy 8 from them, so that so we basically spread the word and everyone kind of reaps in the rewards. But that's something for later. I haven't looked into it too much at the moment, but that's something to keep an eye on. But if you would like to go and have a look at Play Games, or even if it's just kind of like your ears are pricked up, like, ooh, Play Games, please go and have a look, and go and have a look at Richie's business, because the team over there are just wonderful. That's Play Games UK, and again, the links are in the description. So let's get back to what I was painting. If you want to have a look at it, probably in a better camera, because for some reason my lighting's gone weird today, I say you can go to the Facebook page, but let's take you back to the workbench here. Okay, cool. Here is my little firefly. So I've just cleaned my airbrush through because it was playing up a bit earlier on. I've got the first two colours on there. I haven't done any more colours on it. I thought I'd do that with you. But I've got here a picture of a firefly in the bottom left corner. Hey, that is a model. That is not a real tank, obviously. But if you look at the end of the cannon on there, because the 17-pounder cannon was a massive gun, the German forces identified it as a must kill. Like that was a priority target, because that could take out heavily armored German targets with one shot. So it was always prioritized, to the point where, you know, people kind of got quite scared about it. So they had to try and camouflage it as best they could. You could chop the end of the barrel off, but that's going to cause you all sorts of physics problems, and it's going to decrease your range probably. So the easiest way to disguise it is to camouflage the end of the barrel. So what they did in most cases is they camouflaged the length beyond the 75mm standard cannon length. So if you look on that picture there, you can see like a wiggly white line kind of going along the bottom, and that breaks up the outline, and that was really common on fireflies, especially moving forwards from after their initial release. So what I'm going to try and do with this tank, probably during the weekend, not on the show tonight, is I'm going to see if I can paint that by hand. It's going to be very difficult because 50mm is the size of a cocktail stick, but I'm going to see if I can just kind of get that effect more or less on the end of the barrel. So that's what I was saying. I didn't want to do any kind of highlighting zenithal work to kind of bring your eye to the gun as a bit of a centerpiece to it. I'm going to see if I can do that itself. So yeah, that's a firefly. I like the firefly. When I went to Bovington Tank Museum, they had displays on the Comet there, which was its kind of successor, and it's an entirely different tank. It's not on the Sherman chassis at all. It's quite an interesting looking tank, but it has essentially a 17-pounder in there. I don't know much about the Comet. I was actually kind of looking into researching about it. It's very interesting. I find historical tanks fantastic and fascinating. So I'm going to move into now Serve Drab. Serve Drab. I don't know what Serve Drab means as such, but so I'm just going to give it a shake. While I'm shaking this up, let me know how you're getting on with the models that you're painting. Now, we've got a few people that have kind of brought their models along tonight. Sisters of Battle, we've got all sorts of bits and pieces going on in there. Let me know how you're getting on. Again, you could just go onto the Facebook page, find the picture that I put up there, and you can post in the replies, if you like, images of what you're painting. I'd like to see what you're doing. I shouldn't be shaking paints and drinking red wine at the same time. Don't do as I do. Don't do that. Okay, so airbrush, hopefully. There we go. I'm gonna put less in than what I did earlier on, because I had quite a bit of that olive drab left over, because I'm using less and less now as I go with more highlighting. So I'm gonna put 5 drops of this colour in. Shall I start on the turret? No, don't do it. Don't break a habit. I'm going to put a drop of airbrush thinner in. It's got quite a big nozzle on that bottle and it comes out quite quickly, so you've got to be careful with that one. And then a drop of flow improver, which is weird because it's not like a jelly, but it's just like a thick water. It's very weird. Boop, and it goes. Cool. These come in really tiny bottles, but that will probably last me for a very long time because I'm only putting a drop in with each colour, with each application. This time we've got much less in the bottom of the hopper there. Give it a bit of a stir, tilt it back a bit. Mix it around a little bit. There we go. Just wash that brush off and leave it in there. So what's this colour here? I'm sure I spat that wine. There we go. So this colour is much brighter. I don't know if you can see that quite. That is really quite a light colour, so I don't want to go really heavy with this. So I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna focus on this corner and this corner here, and maybe on these kind of hatches and that line, and then I'm going to blend it backwards and I'm going to blend it down as well, and then I'll kind of do a sort of an angled approach to the bogies. Bogies. Let's see. Nice and gentle. That's really quite nice. You probably can't see that at all on the camera, but I'll show you on photographs as the paint goes on my Facebook page. That's really quite effective. In fact, I'm not going to go any harder than that. I don't want to be too hard with that at all. Now, a little trick that I learned when I first started airbrushing is if you're struggling to get the level coming out of the airbrush, do it on the paper first and then just kind of bring it to the model. Yeah, like that. Cool. And then I'm going to go to the back now. A little bit down the side there. I want to bring a little bit of attention to these panels. These are basically metal plates that were welded on the sides of the hull. I'll bring it over here into the light, you can see a bit better. Yeah, these plates here were welded onto the side where basically there was important things like people or ammunition behind them to provide a little bit extra armor. But if you welded a whole plate along the side, then you're obviously adding, in some respects, unnecessary amounts of armor, but you know, an undesired amount of additional weight. So yeah, you have these little boiler plates essentially welded to the sides. But then, you know, crews would do their own things to kind of improve armor, and they just put anything they wanted on the sides, be it extra tracks or wheels or logs. We've all seen Fury. The logs become quite a popular thing for people to consider putting on the sides of their tanks, their model tanks. There's actually a lot of talk to suggest that adding things on to the sides of your tank would actually improve the chances of successful ballistic penetration, because things like tank jacks and whatever would actually snag the round and guide it into actually hitting rather than glancing or bouncing off. But British commanders went on record for saying if it makes their crews feel safer, then all the better. It's just such a brighter highlight. I'm trying to be so careful with it. Silence falls over the crowd. There we go. Just trying to bring again a little bit more attention to it. They've got this little plate welded on the side here, so I was just trying to focus on that one a little bit. Trying if I can get a bit more on it without ruining the colours. There we go. Give it a bit of a flush through, because this paint seems to be struggling a little bit, and again that could be just because the airbrush needs a really good clean on the inside. The needle collects a lot all the way along. The needle travels from, well, I can unscrew the back here and I can show you. So the needle runs from here all the way to the back. This screws onto sort of there, and basically wherever the paint is inside here, the needle collects it all the way along. So there's a lot of space for paint to kind of build up and dry. So if you are going to an airbrush and you are having problems, just persist, man. Just persist. Okay. Gentle, gentle. Now, one of the tricks that I learned watching Mig Aminez, actually the person who owns the company for these paints, is an incredible painter, does a lot of 135th tanks and things. One of the things I learned from him is that if you go too high with your highlights, you go too bright, is that you can get your mid-range colours and you can just do a really thin layer over, like what I was doing over here earlier on for Adrian's question, is that you can just kind of bring the mid layers back over and it just, calms down those brighter colours, and you also bring back that hue as well. So if I do go too bright, I can go back to the olive drab, even the brown if I wanted to, and I could lend it that hue. Look at me, sounds like I know what I'm talking about. Oh, I went too bright there, too bright. I'm going to hit that with a bit of just air, just dry that off because I saturated a bit too heavy there. Try and match it now. There we go. Okay, so it doesn't look too far out of place. Okay, so you can see the difference that highlight colour has made. again, if I bring it up to this light here, it's a bit easier to see over here, isn't it? You see the difference now in the hull to the turret. They were both the same before I started. There's quite a brightness difference in there. I'm really struggling with the light on my screen today. I'm really sorry about that. So now, again, obviously I started with the hull and not the turret. I'm such a douche. I'm just going to do this highlight colour over here as well. And again, like I was saying earlier on, I'm just going to pay attention to the curved features on the essentially the corners, I suppose. Now, if you go too soft and you get too close, you get spattering because the paint is struggling to get out, so it's just kind of spitting. So it needs a bit of pressure behind it. So if you go too gentle, you'll get kind of a spotting effect, like you've spat it out. So try not to be too precious. Remember, you can always go back. Okay, probably gone a bit too far there. I had camp hands. There's a little bit on the back there that I want. There we go, that's probably a bit better. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flush through this one. I'm going to get onto my last highlight colour, which is khaki green number 3. And then that'll be my zenith or highlight, I suppose. That'll be the brightest colour I'm going to go. And if I feel that it's gone too bright and I can't, it's gone beyond that dark bottle green that I wanted, then I can just go back to the olive drab colour and kind of pull back through those tones. Let's go back to this little patch down here that I was talking about, getting a good colour over the top. So with the highlight, can I go over the darker browns? So the brown was here. I'm going to see if I can go over this really light colour. Saturate it there. Over the green. Yeah, I've got a really good colour saturation going over that dark brown, over that darker green, coming up with this colour now. Really quite easy. I can probably go over all of this. Goes like a parchment paper colour. It's a good use of the leftover paint that I've got. Testing the opacity of paints. There we go. Interesting. Okay, so let me get my cleaning pot out. Pop them in there, stick a bit of water on the top, just dilutes the paint down, flows really easily then through the airbrush. There we go. If you're painting for long periods of time, it's a really good idea to clean through regularly. So you should be flushing through after each colour, and then like maybe after like an hour or two, you should probably consider giving it a good clean. And at the end of your painting session, you want to strip it down, probably put it in a sonic bath. I'm going to put a bit more water in there, just flush that through because we've been going for a while. Like I say, I had problems at the beginning. There we go, test it out on the paper, no residues, fantastic. Okay, cool. A sip of wine. I'm a red wine fiend. Okay, so now my final colour, khaki green number 3. I wonder if this is going to be like a really bright colour, or if it's just a different type of green colour. Like I say, I hadn't played with these colours before. We started tonight, so I don't know if this really is a modulation set. It may or may not be. Good shake there. They're actually really good paints. They don't need that much. Okay, I'm just going to put 3 drops in because I'm going to be using so little here. 3. Oh, do you know what? 1 for luck. There we go. I don't want to struggle to go in. Perhaps that was someone telling me. You shouldn't have done that. I'm going to put an airbrush thinner drop in there, even though I've only got that small amount. I'm not going to bother putting airbrush flow improver in, just because I'll be diluting the paint down so much. I'm only going to be using a small amount. I might regret it, but you know, when I first started, I was putting like 13, 14 drops in there, and now I've only put 3 in, so I don't want to kind of dilute it too far. What I do want to do is get my mixing brush, get a bit of a clean out there. Wonderful. I'm gonna, at the end of the show, once I finish this here, in the last little bit of the show, I'm going to talk about a bit more about brush choices and brush care and things like that. And I've got some products that I want to kind of show you. And if you follow us on Facebook, then you'll probably see me do some videos throughout the week showing you what these products are. I've got some paint remover, proper paint remover, and I've got some brush care gel and other bits and pieces that yeah, I wanted to experiment with, but I thought, you know, an exclusive Facebook content. I do try to put up a live video once a week on Facebook, just like an update on what I'm doing, but I thought this time I would show you some of the stuff that I recently bought, because you might want to have a go. But I'll show you those in a bit. So this is my last color. This is okay. So this is a zenithal highlight. So this is the color of the SCC2 service drab or whatever it is, and then this is the khaki over the top, so it is a highlight. So this is essentially a modulation set. So this is going to be my highest highlight, my brightest highlight. I'm going to try and get quite a thin, there we go, color across the top there. Music has got a bit of dubstep, hasn't it? I wonder if you can actually hear the music. I wonder if I got my levels all sorted. Maybe it's just me that can hear it. Oh, we've got a bit of spatter coming out of there. I'm probably not putting enough pressure through the airbrush. So I'll just make sure that the end of my needle's clean. There we go. Yeah, it was a bit of both. I get a bit timid when I start going to highlights like this. I get a bit timid, and I don't put enough pressure on the airbrush trigger, and it just clogs up every time, man. There we go. It's just like a muscle memory. There we go, that's better. Okay, a little bit on the wheels. Again, coming down at a bit of an angle, using the model as a bit of a guide. This paint is struggling. Perhaps I should have put some flow improver through there. Learn by my mistakes, people. Here we go. Wonderful. Okay, so again, now I can see, probably not so well on your screens, but I can see a big difference now between the highlight colours of the hull and the turret. And once again, I've gone and done it with the turret, not done that first, so that I can come back and do the barrel without holding it, but whatever. So now just, oh, I said real gentle, go really heavy, see what happens, spray the whole thing. But you know, we make mistakes. And a very slight dribble across the top there. There we go. And I think that is pretty much done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put like a couple of drops of the mid-tone, that olive drab, back in there, and I'm just going to put a real thin layer right over the top of the whole thing, just to dye down those highlights a little bit, because I do think they are a little bit brighter. If I put them side by side to the standard Sherman, there's a very different colour between them, which is what I wanted, but this is very, very bright. So I'm going to dull it back down again because I want those British colours to be quite dark. I'm going to use up the last little bit of the colour here for the saturation test. You can see quite clearly there's a big difference there. That's wonderful. It's a really good paint. I really like this. Good quality paints from MIG Ammo, and from AK Interactive. I highly recommend them. Right. Oh, that was the last little bit. Okay, so stick a bit of water in there. Lovely. Quarter two. So good timing, actually. Good timing. I struggled to fit it all in last time when I did the Tiger because it had six colours in there. So even though it's a small little model, taking that a bit of time still takes an evening, still takes a show. And if you've got big armies to get through, it can be really discouraging. So I understand why we all have unpainted armies. Got a bit of a whistle effect going on through my airbrush there. That tells me there's probably a bit of a blockage. But it's okay, I'll just drop my needle guard on the floor. I'll fetch that one out later on. Be careful from here on in, Dan. Okay, cool. So we're going to go back to my olive drab. Give that a bit of a shake. And I'm just going to put, I'll probably put two or three drops in. 2, 3, there we go. And I'm going to go for airbrush thinner, and I'm going to go airbrush flow improver because I didn't do that last time and I noticed the difference. It could have just been me, but you know what, don't tempt fate. There's a drop of that in there as well. Okay, I need my little mixing brush again, so I need to clean that off. Wonderful. Right, so mix. What is quite important is that when you're mixing in the hopper of your airbrush with your mixing brush, if you've got a residue of the old paint that's probably still on the inside, is to not agitate them so that they fall into the fresh pool of paint you got in there, and then you're just going to block your airbrush up straight away. Fortunately, when it does dry, it does stick quite a bit, but don't be aggressive with that mixing process because you'll just cause yourself problems. Oh, my headphones are coming off. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's just look at the flow. That comes out really well, so I'm going to be careful with that. I don't want it to be a heavy thing. I want lots of air, so I'm going to push the trigger right down and just gently pull back on that trigger, and you can see just here how that builds up quite quickly. So by keeping the airbrush well away from the model, I'm spreading out over a larger area, very thin layer, and it just calms all that highlighting down. I'm spitting quite a lot today. I spat on the tank there. That's looking much better, but those highlights are still affecting that new hue that I've put on the top. They're essentially lending a brightness factor to the next layer. So where I've got the darker colours at the bottom, they're providing a shadow pushing through that top layer that I've just put on, and then those highlights are going to be creating basically you have like a lighting effect that comes through the paintwork. And yeah, I'm still learning, but when you do it, when you get it, it's really satisfying. Now I went a bit heavy down the back here where this tool rack is down here, so I'm just going to kind of focus there a little bit. There we go. And that is much better. If I put that beside the turret, that's looking pretty good. I went a bit heavy on top of the cannon, so I'm just going to make it a bit of a pass over there. And then I went really heavy on the top of the turret, so there, brilliant. And that, I think, is pretty much where I'm going to leave this bad boy today. I have no decals for British AFEs at all. I've got a few for the German stuff, and I've got a few for the American stuff as well. So like on the side of my Shermans, you've got like the turret numbers on there. They're quite hard to find good quality ones. I've been looking around all over the place, and I see some here and there, and I look at them and go like, oh, they're not actually what I want. I did find one gentleman somewhere in the UK that was doing them, but unfortunately there was no contact through his website, so obviously he's stopped trading or something. A bit of a shame because they were really good. Let me just go over this colour here again. So yeah, the saturation goes right over that brown. These are really good covering paints, so if you're interested, get yourself over and have a look. Jeff has said, but you could do a line of 6 tanks in the same amount of time or close to. Yeah, so obviously you're talking about it's taking me 2 hours to paint that one tank. You're right, especially once I got used to this. If I wanted to do a British tank troop, I would have 4 tanks. What they did with their Firefly is that they had 1 in their troop, and the British troop was 4 tanks. So you'd have 3 standard Shermans going in, and then you would have 1 Firefly that would probably be kept at the back, so that it was harder to pick him out at spotting the troop straight off. When you would engage that troop, the Firefly would then hide somewhere and then try and pop off targets as they kind of gave themselves away. So you could do a troop and have 3 standard Shermans and the Firefly and do them all together, and I don't think it would add an awful lot of time on top. If you were just going through adding all those base colours on bit by bit, it'd probably take you about 2.5 to 3 hours if you're just starting out. So yeah, there is that. That would have taken me probably a long time to achieve that if I did it all by hand. But the effects are different, right? The effects are different. I think Skytrex might have them. Oh, is Skytrex a supplier of decals? I've heard the name before, but that might just because it sounds like familiar words. I don't know. Yeah. If you know of anywhere that does 15mm good quality Second World War decals, please let me know. Drop it in the comments for the videos or the live chat if you know now, or even on Facebook, because I will shout you out if you help me out, because I'd like them. I've got some Iron Crosses somewhere, but I think they're the wrong scale. There we go. So we're pretty much cleaned out here. Gonna take this opportunity to have another sip of drink because my mouth is dry tonight. Probably because I'm drinking red wine. Fresh piece of paper out. Let's have a little look and pop that bad boy on there. So, leave them on the side. I am really sorry about my lighting today. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm going to bring my lights in real close and bleach this out. There we are. So now you can see my highlights a bit better. Don't really know what's going on with my lighting today. Like I say, I'm a bit of a noob. So yeah, there we go. I'm really happy with that. I've still obviously got some other work to do on it. I try not to do too much detail on these tanks because they're just so small. Less is more. There's no need to go too far with it. But what I would do is I would pick up the tracks, and I would probably just do them in a nice sort of darkish brown. I would then pick out just a few of the tools. There's a lot of controversy about how to paint tools, like the shafts of shovels and axes and hammers and things. What colour were they? They often were the colour that the tank was coloured because they wanted it to blend in, they don't want it to stand out. But if you're painting a model, you often want those little details to stand out, especially on smaller models. If you're doing a 1/35th, then you're going to be able to see it easier, so it might be easier to do it. So when I paint details like tools and things on tanks, I like to paint them like a bare wood colour, so I kind of go down like whitish sort of colours and bring them out. Then I go through and do like silver colours, etc., and then I just put decals on it. I'm going to do a bit of staining on him, and I'm going to use the same colour stain as I did on the standard American Sherman, which is basically just a brown wash. Have I got that on here? Yes, I do. This is an enamel wash. We used this one the other week with the we used the yellow one for the Tiger, but this one just says for green vehicles. It doesn't matter what green, the brown wash is going to work well for it, so that will pick a lot of the details out on there. That would be kind of cool, and you can see the difference in the two tanks already. So this one here has got the kind of rounded sort of turret. This one's got a bit more of an edge on the top up there as well. It's got a different front chassis to it as well. and it doesn't have the cannon clamp for traveling on the front. It actually has it on the back because it was such a long turret. Sorry, a long cannon. They would rotate the turret so it was kind of off to the left slightly, and they would clamp it there because there's just more distance to hold it on the back, because it would affect the gyros and the mechanisms on the inside of just kind of hanging there. I am really chuffed with the colours that have come out on there. It's close enough that they kind of blend in together, and they're kind of green, and you kind of get that allied sort of colour, but they stand out different to the Americans one, where it was very olive drab for the American colours, and it goes into the more bottle greens, darker greens for the British one. That is actually still looking quite bright by comparison, so tomorrow when I've got more natural light, I might give it another pass over with an olive drab and just tone those highlights down. I've got more comments coming in. Jeff says they do 15mm range, so that's Skytrex then, and models as well. Perhaps I have seen that company. I will go and have a look, and what I will do on Facebook tomorrow is I will put up a video, or at least a post of some kind, informing you what they do, what the qualities are like, and hopefully they'll be good enough, and I'll buy them and then I'll show you a bit more about them. And then Ruben's, but how do you like the enamel washes versus acrylics? I've never tried enamel. It's a really good question. There are fors and against for either or of them. The best thing about enamel washes is that you've got a lot more control over them, and the amount of time that you have to control it. So you would use either white spirit or thinner. Have I got any thinner to hand here? I've got everything. Here it is. So I use white spirit. I use the AK Interactive because, you know, why not, for cleaning, and then the enamel odorless thinner for kind of manipulating it on the model. And I am very new to enamels myself. I've only been doing it for a couple of years. I watched pros, actually Mig Aminez himself. He basically puts a very thin layer of spirit, white spirit, across the surface he's going to be applying it to I think assist in the capillary action, or so where it draws the colours to. And then you can use a brush with thinner, and you can kind of manipulate it, tidy it up, clean it, and even once it's dried, after hours and hours of drying, you can come back with thinner or spirit, and then you can kind of clean it up, tidy it up, and change it. Where if you use acrylics, once it's set, it's kind of set. You can affect it with water, but beyond that, it's once it dries, it goes pretty hard to affect. It's also easier to get tide marks with acrylics, where the water tension affects the actual pigment itself. So if you go too heavy with an acrylic color, it's quite possible that you'll have like a very definitive tide mark line, which I've never experienced with at least careful use of enamels. The problem is with enamels is that they're a bit harder to clean, and they stink. And if you spill them on your carpet, well, probably if you spill acrylic washes on your carpet, you're probably going to be explaining your life away anyway. So don't spill them. Don't do it. So yeah, I really like them because of the colours that are there. Like I say, enamels and oil-based paints are really coming back strong lately. Where I really credit enamels is going into rust effects and things. I don't do that on these 15mm models because, again, less is more. But with the 135th Panther that I've got here, I'm going to be going all out, and I've got light rust, dark rust, grime. I've got like mouldy green colours for things that have been sat around in damp conditions for a long time. I've got fuel stains and track washes. I've got all of it, and I'm not going to do much of those in this show. I will hopefully be making another show for another evening where maybe I'll do like a 135th model, and I'll tell you what it is, and if you want to, you can purchase it, and then you can kind of join in along, and you know, we can make the model together, or you can just at least watch me make a pig's ear of it, whatever. But when you've got a bigger canvas as such to work with, you can put more effort into larger amounts of details. These are just small. Just stick with a simple wash like you would with a Citadel light Nuln oil or something like that. This one here is more than enough. That's all I've done on this one here. And I believe, Ruben, I've actually sent you photos of this particular little one here, or at least these two, and that's more than enough for it. So yeah, that's washing. So the other products that I picked up from Green Stuff World, I got through Play Games UK with Richie, is I bought oh my god, knocking everything over, is I bought some Green Stuff World Instant Glue, which is basically a high quality super glue, and I got an activator to go with it. I got these because I was experiencing problems putting my little Biovore together, the little model Tyranid, because it's just awkward and old and I'm not very good, I suppose. I used to use Gorilla Glue, which is a really good glue, but it does have a bit of a drying time issue on it, and I wanted something that was instant, so I got cyanacrylate adhesive, and then I got this one, and you can watch it dry before your very eyes. It's fantastic, and I haven't stuck my fingers together or on anything yet, but because I've said that, that's going to happen now. Really good stuff. I don't know if Green Stuff World is better than anything else. I haven't got really a comparison to it, but I got it because I wanted to try it. So that was that stuff. Yeah, obviously got my flow improver that I've already spoken about. I've got some brush repair gel because I wanted to start looking into brush care products and things. I actually had a lot of messages over the last couple of days about what brushes do you use and how do you look after them. I've actually had quite a few messages from quite a few viewers, and I know that Dave, you're watching right now, hopefully still. You're one of those people that asked me. I could go on for hours and talk about different brushes, but it depends on what you want to get out of it. If you're just kind of mixing stuff in an airbrush, then something that's really, really frayed and old and nasty like this one is absolutely fine. If you are getting more confident and you want really high quality brushes, then you want to be looking at brands such as Winsor Newton and Raphael Kalinsky, and you can find those on Amazon. I haven't seen actually if they're a part of Just to Play Games, but have a little look, see what Richie's selling up there. He might have some things. But if you the brushes that I'm going to buy for high quality work, or high quality brushes that I'm going to look after, are going to be Raphael Kalinsky, and they do about 8 different sizes. I think I'm going to get the 01 and maybe the 02, and those are ones that you could do everything right down to eyes on 28mm models, and then other bits of detailing work, but you don't want to do them for broad layer coating. For that, anything from the Citadel range is absolutely fine. I think all Citadel ranges are synthetic, so they don't last as long, and they are prone to kind of fraying and curling on the ends a bit more, but by proper care and making sure that you're not leaving them standing up in your water for long periods of time, smashing them down when you're cleaning them out, making sure that paint doesn't get into the ferrule is really important. So when you're mixing paints on your palette or doing whatever you're doing, don't let it get too far out the bristles, and if it is creeping, take the time, rinse it out, dry it out carefully on a piece of kitchen tissue. Don't be aggressive with it, and kind of surround it a little bit, and then kind of twist and draw it towards you, give it a gentle squeeze and look after it. And you should do that with all your brushes, really, unless it's ones that you're just kind of doing like basing work with, like this one here, for example. But I recently left some of my detail brushes. I got a couple of detail brushes from Games Workshop, so again, they're synthetics, and I left them in White Spirit, and if you've ever done that, they go as hard as a rock, and I ruined them. So I went online and I was looking for tips to kind of help recover them, and just by putting some like freshly boiled water, obviously you want to be careful and you want to put your hands in it, add a bit of vinegar to it and kind of give them a clean out, and you can clean them out with washing up liquid as well, and then kind of do the water vinegar trick, and then you can put like matte clay putty for your hair, and just put a little bit in there, and then you can just shape the end of the brush. Now what I think this product is essentially what that matte hair product, that matte clay hair product is. I haven't even opened this yet, so as the week goes on, I'm going to be looking at some of the brushes that I want to try and save, and I'm going to be looking at this product, and I'll do a little, I suppose, a little bit of a product reveal on it to see what it does. It simply says on the back, recover the tip of your used brushes and then leave them just as new. Used for factory brush productions to give them the final touch, water soluble and non-stainable. So this is literally, once you've kind of cleaned your brush and you want to maintain the point or the tip of your brush, then this is the substance that you want to use on it. But I'm going to go more into that as the week goes on. I thought it was worth having a little look at. You can obviously get like brush soaps and things like that as well, which probably help you maintain your brush. So after a session of using it and rinsing it out with water, then you would go to the brush soap, and then you could, I think it probably is essentially the same idea as this. I had a lot of luck with washing my brushes out with washing up liquid and boiling water. Not pouring boiled water fresh from the kettle on it, but into a receptacle like a glass. And then my brushes were as good as new after I'd ruined them in White Spirit. And then the other product that I'm going to look at, because I really want to get into this, is paint remover. Because when I stripped the Biovore model down a couple of weeks ago, I did it in Dettol. Now I know that Dettol is a hazardous substance, and you can get Dettol burns from it if you expose your skin to it neat for too long. Don't do it; it's awful. But what it does to the paint is just as bad, and I ruined several old toothbrushes that I used for scrubbing models down, and it just destroyed everything it touched when it came out of it, and the model was very, very hard to clean. Now, you might remember I came up on an episode here. Adrian and a few others of my viewers said that they suggested products like Nitromors or bio whatever the solution is. They're not specific, or Nitromors is specifically for it, but it's a very nasty chemical. But I wanted something that was a bit more gentle, and Green Stuff World came through again, and I bought this from Just Play UK. Again, I've only opened the bottle to nip the dropper bottle on, so I haven't used it yet. But this is supposed to remove almost any paint from any surface without damaging plastics, resins, so on and so forth, within 1 to 6 hours. So I left that Biovore in Dettol for 48 to 72 hours, and it was still a bit of a pig to remove. And I've watched video reviews on this, and it looks the biz. And obviously you just put it in a jar or whatever, and you can reuse it and reuse it. You're going to have particles from the paint that come off, so you could just pour what you've used before through, like, I don't know, like a fabric, like a muslin, and kind of strain it, and then you could really stretch the duration or the lifetime out of this substance. You get quite a bit. This is £10. So I'm going to do a product reveal on this through the week on Facebook as well. So if you're interested to see what this does, I've got a few models that I'm going to do. Kess, I don't think is watching this evening, has sent me through a few models that wanted me to kind of do some test paint jobs on for them, but they need stripping down. So I'm going to use this stuff on them and on one of my metal tyranids as well. So stay tuned to Facebook to find out more about that product. That, I think, is about everything that we can probably get through today. We've got to the end of the show with 2 hours to go through. Adrian has put in a comment there. Oh, and Jeff has as well. I don't think it would help my brushes. No, I've seen what you do to your brushes. Probably, yeah, don't waste your money. Adrian's put BioStrip 2.0 for the plastics, Nitromils for metals. Yeah, okay. Is the BioStrip 2.0, is that specifically a paint stripper, or is it a cleaner or for another job like Dettol is a disinfectant that just so happens to have paint stripping qualities? I'd be quite interested to know what it is. But again, this stuff here looks really gentle. I've smelled it. Obviously, it's nowhere near as strong as Dettol was, and is just not as dangerous as Nitromors, which will literally kill you. So yeah, it won't kill you. It's just a pretty nasty chemical. So yeah, I'm going to try out those two as the week goes on. Wonderful. So it is a paint stripper. Oh, okay, thanks very much. Well, there you go. I've learned something. Maybe I didn't need to buy this stuff, but it'd be nice to try it out anyway. I've had a blast here tonight by myself without Kyle because he left me again. Thanks, Kyle. Next week, obviously next Friday is going to be Christmas Day. I hope that you guys are all ready. I am all ready for it. All my presents are waiting to be wrapped, but they are all here now. But obviously we're not going to do a show on Christmas Day because I'm not going to be here, you're not going to be here, and let's face it, we're all going to be getting drunk and watching the new movies that we got for Christmas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this show at the normal time from 7 to 9, but I'm going to do it next Thursday, so that's Christmas Eve, and I will put up nice and early through the week. I will put up a link to the show, and I will state to remind you that it's going to be on a different day, and then for the new year I will probably do a show on the Thursday, so New Year's Eve. So for the next 2 weeks, probably both of those shows will be a day earlier. If that doesn't work for you and the majority say like, hey, actually no, we would like a show on New Year's Day on the Friday as standard, then just let me know, and of course I will tailor to that. I'm easygoing for New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, but I'm just trying to help you guys out by giving you the best time. People probably going to be drinking on New Year's Eve. That being said, I'll probably drop a live video to say Happy New Year to you all just before the clock strikes 12 here in the UK. Anyway, look, I've had a fantastic evening. I've really enjoyed painting that model. I've been looking forward to doing that for quite some time. So for me, for now, thank you very much for coming along and being a part of it all. Until next week, get the models out that you need to get painted. Let's stop playing with grey armies or unpainted armies, and let's look to a future where we can have an entire painted army. I've been Danny, you've been great, thank you very much, and I will see you next Thursday. Cheers for now, bye bye.